Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story, which comes from Girl at the Gym 67 and says, "Am I the arsehole for storming out of my father's house after finding out he's reconciled with my mother? I, 20 female, was raised by my father, 49 male, alongside my older brothers, Lyle and Kyle, both 23 male. They're twins. Mum left us shortly after I was born, so I've never really had a maternal figure growing up. I've tried to ask my dad why Mum left, but he would always try to dodge the question. Anyways, this kind of messed me up a little bit as a kid because I'd always blame myself for her leaving, and it also didn't help that my older brothers would always use the old trusty "you're why Mum left" card in arguments. During my middle school years, my mum began to call me and my brothers. She swore up and down for years that she wanted me back in her life, but didn't make any effort to get to know me. So that woman broke a lot of promises with me and my brothers. The last straw for me was when she didn't come to a beauty pageant I'd been excited for months. I know that sounds really petty, but at the time it was really important to me, and she swore up and down that she would come. Of course, she broke that promise too. So when my mum called to apologize for not, I let that woman have it. I think the call almost lasted an hour and a half, and it was mostly just me cussing her out. Obviously, ever since that phone call, I've been in no contact with her. But a few days ago, my dad texted me if I wanted to have dinner with him and the boys, saying that he was going to make my favorite meal. Of course, I agreed. I walk in the house and I hear my dad and my brothers talking. Nothing unusual, of course, but then I hear a woman laugh. So I walked to the kitchen and saw my dad, Lyle and Kyle laughing and talking with my mother. So at this point I'm pissed and confused, and I think I thought out loud because I said, "What the fuck is she doing here?" Everyone immediately becomes silent until Dad starts talking. Basically, he says that I need to watch my tone, and that all they want to do is talk to me about their future. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Then my mother had the great idea to drop the bombshell that her and Dad got back together and had been dating for months. I think you can understand how gooped I was from this information, but then Lyle tells me that basically everyone in the immediate family knew about the relationship besides me, because they were worried about how I would react. So, I'm still standing there, shaking with rage. So when my dad tried to grab my arm to sit me down so we could talk, I snatched it back and basically stormed out the house. Now I've been bombarded from texts from my dad and Lyle, saying I was immature and made my mum cry. My friends are 50-50 on it. So Reddit, am I the arsehole? Now I'll start off by saying I'm not the arsehole to me in this situation at all, that they sort of ambushed you at this dinner table like that. I mean, I'm trying to think what they was expecting you to do when you walked in and then you saw her there, someone that abandoned you at birth pretty much. Were they expecting you to just walk in and accept her and everything to be fine? And it sounded like what happened has haunted you for a long time. I can't blame you one bit for your reaction here of walking out, and the rest of the family must realize how they've damaged the relationship with you. And look, your father's a grown adult. He can get with who he wants to get with, but he must realize at the same time there's going to be consequences to this. He must have known your feelings towards your mother, and therefore already had an inkling of your reaction to this. So for him to, like I said, ambush you at a dinner table with her there, what kind of way to go about it is that? Not that it sounds like you would ever forgive Mum for what she's done or anything like that, but at the same time, if you're going to go through with this, why would you go through with it in this way? But many hobbies gal says, not the arsehole for how you feel. They blindsided you and then blamed you for your reaction. If you choose to have nothing to do with your mother, you shouldn't have to. Realize your father is an adult, free to be involved with whomever he chooses. Opie says, I know he's a grown man, but I just don't understand what he sees in her. She literally left him with 3 kids to raise all by himself. But now they're all grown up, she wants to come back? This whole situation just has me in a tizzy, to be honest. Emotional Bonus replies that and says, focus on what you want. Do you trust your father and brothers enough that you want to continue a relationship? Opie says, trust is not the word I would use, but I still love them very much. They've never done anything this hurtful besides Lyle, but what he does is tame compared to this. He mainly makes fun of my fashion sense. Confused says it would have been better for your dad to talk to you alone. The fact that they all kept it from you was inconsiderate. I'm sorry. I've been there, in a sense of being left out or always the last to know. Be strong. To which Opie says, thank you, I just feel so upset and confused with them right now because they've never kept anything like this from me. Usually my dad's addressing matters with all of us. Glitter Association says not the arsehole. You'd be totally justified in going no contact with your family over this. They ambushed you and just decided you had to deal with it. You went through years of heartbreak, broken promises, and torment by your mother and family members. Hope you find your own way in peace. Opie says thank you for the kind words, but I just want to clear the air that my brothers didn't constantly torment me about our mother. It mainly happened when we were in a big fight or something, and they would drop the "this is why mum left us" card on me. It's not right, of course, but I can kind of understand where my brothers were coming from. I had more of an established relationship beforehand with my mum. And I feel like myself, I have to add on to that is, no, it's not right. And you don't be understanding of where your brothers were coming from because they were totally in the wrong there. And your dad should have been closing that shit down pretty quickly. But Tori Beth says, not the arsehole. You were blindsided by this. No one said anything because they knew you would be angry. They were trying to soften your reaction with a done deal. Make it clear to everyone in the family, and especially your dad and brothers, that you cannot dictate their choices, just like they cannot dictate yours. And if they are willing to let her back in and likely get burned again, then that's up to them. However, you've had your trust broken by her far too many times and not willing to do the same. Tell your dad and brothers that you love them, but they better not pressure you into anything. You have no qualms to cutting them and any flying monkeys they try and send your way out of your life. Tell them that in the event that there is a family get-together, dinner, holidays, reunions, etc., you'll be civil, but that you'll be treating her as a new wife that you refuse to call stepmom, or mum in this case, and will only acknowledge her as such. She is not to try and parent you. She is not to try and give you life advices unless you ask her for such. She is not to try and step into your life as mum. She gave up that right with regards to you long ago, and she does not get it back unless you choose to let her. No one is trying to guilt you into accepting her back, especially her. So OP does kindly update their post and says, so before I get into anything, I just wanted to thank everyone for the kind words and reassurance. I wasn't really expecting it all. I also want to apologize for the late response to everything. I've been busy with work and other things that I just haven't had the time. Anyways, with your guys' advice, I texted my dad and told him that I wanted answers about what the hell was going on. He agreed, but he said he wanted to have dinner over at his place, and I had to tell him that he lost that trust when he tried to back me into a corner. He came over to my apartment. I had my friend, male 24, staying in my sewing room for protection. Dad just started sobbing, begging for forgiveness. He kind of went on about how he just wanted us to be the family that we were 20 years ago. The family I don't even remember. And to let you guys know, these were definitely not crocodile tears. So I hugged him to calm down, but I'd put my foot down and tell him that I wanted answers, not tears. He calmed himself a little bit down and explained everything that I asked. 1. Mum was very young when she got together with Dad, with a significant age gap. They started dating right after high school graduation. 2. My mother had a history of drug addiction, something I had suspected. She overdosed once and my dad had to rush her to the hospital. The twins suffered during this period. 2. I was an unplanned pregnancy. My parents decided to put my mother in rehab during her pregnancy. She remained miserable and she ran away to Florida after my birth. 3. Recently my mum got clean, got a job and wanted to apologize to my dad. They rekindled their relationship and decided it would be best to let the twins know first before they tell me. It was nice to have this information and I thanked him for it, but I told him that why she didn't apologize to the kids whose heart that she broke constantly. Of course, he started to backpedal and saying that I just needed to give her a chance to prove herself because the twins already have. Plus, it was a really shitty move not to even mention to me that mum was back. And I had to explain to him that I had given another chance, way too many times, and that she destroyed that bridge beyond repair. But I also did tell him that I wasn't going to cut them off for it, but mum was just going to be the new woman, and that we needed to go to therapy without mum before we continued anything. Dad was a little upset when I laid down this information to him, but he did agree on the therapy and said he would tell Lyle and Kyle about it. He did tell the twins. Kyle was down, but Lyle was mad. He tried calling multiple times and wouldn't pick up. He started texting me horrible things, basically boiling it all down to me being a spoiled brat that needs to get over the past. I gave him a piece of my mind before I blocked him. and we've been no contact since. We also had our first therapy session, and it wasn't groundbreaking, it was just kind of like a introduction type thing, and kind of addressing what we want to work on. I showed her my post when I was alone with her to give her more context because I can be scattered-brained at times. She says she definitely wants to go deeper on my feelings about my mother, alongside my father and brothers if possible. I try to give more updates if possible. And all I can say is I'm incredibly sorry that you are going through what you are going through right now. From what you said, it sounds in itself, your mum coming back into her life with your dad taking her in, and it must be just the feelings involved must be absolutely heartbreaking for you. But for them to have your family turn their back on you and say that you're being like a spoiled brat and all this sort of stuff as well has really got to hurt. And I really hope that therapy does continue to help you and you get what you need out of it as well. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. And this next story comes from new user 9461, does come with an update as well. And it says, am I the arsehole for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? So, a little backstory. When my sister and I were kids, every year for our birthdays and Christmas, my uncle would give us cards. Inside those cards would be a printed out picture of some place, i.e. local theme parks, the zoo, aquariums, museums, any place a kid would love to go. After we opened them, he would tell us that we're going to that place. He would say things like, it's going to be the best trip of your life. That would absolutely make us very excited. Here's the thing, we never went on any of those trips. We never went to any of those places. As a young kid, it would be disappointing, but after a while I started expecting it and just going along with it. I don't hold any animosity towards him at all, obviously. As an adult now, I understand he did that because he didn't have the means to buy us gifts. Here's where I'm starting to have a little bit of an issue with it. My daughter's 5th birthday was last week. My uncle gave her a card. She opened it to find a printed out picture of a theme park about 2 hours away from our house, and he promised her a fun weekend away. He promised her things like a giant hotel room with a swimming pool, all the snacks she could ever want, and tickets to every show she wants to see at the park. She was over the moon. For the past week, my daughter has talked non-stop about this trip. She keeps telling me how excited she is and how excited our whole class at school is for her. It breaks my heart to look at that smile on her face knowing it's not going to happen. I remember how disappointing it was for me, and I don't want her to go through that. So, I text my uncle. Here's what the message said. Hi, your message in daughter's name's card was so beautiful. Do you think next time you could leave out the promise of an extravagant trip? The thought and gesture is amazing. However, I never know what to say when she asks me when this trip will be. She absolutely loves spending time with you, so I know the promise of even a nice lunch together would make her so happy. He never responded, but my aunt told me he was upset. She said something like he was offended that I implied the only thing he could afford was a nice lunch. I didn't mean it like that at all. I just wanted him to understand that she loves him and wants to spend time with him, and he doesn't need to promise impossible things to make that happen. But I can see why he interpreted it the way he did, and that's where I'm wondering if I'm the arsehole. This has been an unspoken thing in my family for so many years, so now I'm wondering if I should just kept it that way. I just can't stand the thought of my little girl getting disappointed so many times. My sisters and my mum agree with me. My mum even said she wished she'd stopped it when we were kids. So, am I the arsehole for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? Absolutely not the arsehole in this situation at all, and I'm assuming this is the first time he's done it because she's 5 years old. I kind of think, and this is a hindsight thing, and it's very easy for me to say reading the story that maybe you could have immediately let her know so she doesn't get her hopes up after she opened the card and saw this, that this is something that uncle does, and then, put a stop to it with him immediately, because that's just incredibly sad. Stories for kids, man. The thought of this kid getting all excited, going to school, telling all her mates about it, and they're all excited for her about this trip, and then to find out it's all bullshit is just that's incredibly cruel. But Poet Revolutionary says, not the arsehole, but why are you being sensitive to his feelings when he wasn't sensitive to yours when you were a child? Tell him that his actions cause you repeated disappointment when he didn't follow through on promises, and that you don't want your child to experience the same. IOUs are not presents. As you say, a lunch or an activity on the day would be lovely, but other than that, stick to an actual gift or give nothing at all. Disastrous Nail says not the arsehole. Stop being nice because he's not being nice. He knowingly is getting a child's hopes up and then crushing it. There isn't one nice thing about what he's doing. Tell him he's no longer allowed to give gifts because he's a known liar, and that all attempts will be intercepted by you. Pandora says not the arsehole. Your uncle is being cruel to another generation. And says, I know you feel offended by what I said, but you are being cruel to my daughter by promising a trip that will never materialize. You did exactly the same thing to me and my sisters when we were children, so I know for a fact how much it hurts to have these grand promises made but never seen through, and I will not allow you to hurt my daughter in the same way. It doesn't matter if it's a lack of time, finances, or another reason. It is unacceptable to make a child feel this way. You know my daughter loves spending time with you. She would have been so happy with a trip to the local park and ice cream, spending time with you. Instead, now I have to deal with a little girl's broken heart, like mine was many times. Please think about the consequences of your actions. Just because you don't witness them doesn't mean they don't happen. Brain surgery woman says not the arsehole, and I would definitely protect your daughter because that's exactly what you are doing. The disappointment for everyone when it doesn't happen is so harsh for a child. It's not a life lesson she needs to learn. Too bad he's upset about your implication. Your daughter comes first. He's making empty promises and setting her up to not believe or trust when someone gives her something exciting. You already went through that and know how it feels. She doesn't deserve that also. Amber All Day says you're the arsehole for not telling your daughter the truth. I find it unbelievable that you let her be so excited for an entire week, to the point telling her school friends and about her promised treat, and at no point you could have said, sorry sweetheart, uncle was only telling a story. He won't be taking you on a trip. He did this to me my whole childhood. It's just a really lovely dream, but it won't ever be a real trip. Why didn't you say that to her the same day that he told her about this fake present? When she is eventually disappointed, that will be completely on you. As a parent, you should know better and should do better. And one more comment from 3baller who says you're the arsehole because you enable lies to be a birthday gift. I'm sorry you were raised being given these lies, but it needs to stop. It's a bad idea that only persists around in your family because a cheap man made it tradition to allow himself to be cheap and unthoughtful every year. I wish I had a tradition that made me a good person for not spending money, but at least I don't lie to children. A knick-knack or candy would have been more thoughtful and also as cheap as a false promise. And it wouldn't make you resent your relatives. Please end your family tradition. OP adds their update and says thanks to everyone for your feedback on my last post. A lot of people asked why I was being so nice to my uncle, and honestly, I think I underestimated how weird it was because it's been so normalized in my family. I didn't want to cause drama, so I went about it as non-confrontational as possible. I agree now that I should have been more direct. Another concern a lot of you had was that I allowed this to happen to my daughter previously. That is not true. This is the first time he promised her one of his trips. That's why I decided to say something so this doesn't become a recurring thing. Here's the update. I tried to call my uncle twice, but he didn't answer. I got through to my aunt and explained everything to her. How many times he did this to my siblings and I, and how often we were disappointed. I told her my daughter was so excited that if they were actually planning to take her on this trip, I would apologize. She didn't take that well. She told me I was creating unnecessary drama and that my daughter and I are acting entitled to expect them to drop everything to go on this trip. I was shocked and angry. I said, how dare you say that? She didn't imagine this trip in her mind and expect you to take her. You promised her this trip. Her disappointment is not entitlement. I said it's not my job to make sure a grown man feels secure in himself, and it's a shame my family spent so long coddling him. I was so mad I just hung up. I don't feel any ounce of guilt for setting my boundary anymore. For everyone asking if I can take my daughter on the trip. Unfortunately, that theme park closes for the season this month, but I surprised her with something even better. After the phone call with my aunt, my partner and I decided to book a trip to Disneyland. It sounds crazy and impulsive, but we've been wanting to plan this for a while and decided it's the perfect time. My kid is entitled to an extravagant trip. Last year, we sat her down and explained that her uncle won't be able to take her on the trip. I tried to be as honest as possible without confusing her. She was unsurprisingly upset and had a lot of questions. After we answered them all, I told her not to worry because her mum and dad are taking her somewhere instead. When she found out it was Disney, she was over the moon. She spent all day deciding which Minnie Mouse stuffy she wants to take with her. I told her to tell her class her trip got upgraded. All things considered, is a happy ending. I know I won't always be able to protect her from disappointment, but I sure as hell will do my best. She's getting that giant hotel room she was promised. And the aunt's reaction to that when OP spoke to her, and it's just like, that you're entitled, that the daughter's entitled for expecting the trip that they promised. What kind of logic is that? Holy shit. I'm glad that the daughter is getting her trip to Disney, and I hope it's as magical as they are hoping for. And I was so surprised about the amount of comments below that update that was saying that their family was like that and used to make promises, extravagant promises like this, and never follow through. I find that just incredibly sad. But what do you guys make of this situation? Maybe you can relate in some way. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care.